Right, I reckon we should crack on. So, thank you everybody that's presently watching. Nice to have you here. This should prove to be an interesting conversation with a rather lovely chap called Dr. Milan Hosta. For those that don't know, he is, Milan, can I call you one of the early collaborators of the Flow Code?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, good. I'm glad I've described that correctly. And for those that I'll remind you, along my little journey, I've gained a few accreditations along the way, and one of those being as a flow coach. So I've learned various different disciplines, practices, protocols that will encourage more flow states in my life, and that's certainly much of what I now pass on to others in my one-to-one sessions. If anybody's interested in one-to-ones, I tend not to do many of them, but if you are interested, you can check out, and I'll drop a link at the end of this in my website. You can also sign up to my 10-day introductory flow course that starts next week, that will very much make use of all of the amazing material that comes with Flow Code, and in particular their biohacking portal Flow Hub 7, all of which Dr. Milan Hosta was crucial in its creation. What we will be discussing today is flow states in particular, how and why they happen, how we can encourage them to happen more often, and also specifically looking at breath in particular. So Milan has been coaching breath work for 20 years in areas such as sports psychology. And we'll also probably discuss a few other things to do with the encouragement of flow state. So I'm really looking forward to this chat. Milan, I'm going to hand it over to you. If you could just introduce yourself and just let everybody know your journey to how you got to where you are now.
Thank you, Dave. It's a journey of what should I say, 47 years.
Wow. Yep.
It's been, I'm halfway done, I guess. There's still a lot ahead of us. Yes, as you said, I've been part of the flow code, designing the flow code, actually from the scratch. Maybe later we can discuss more about it, how we came up to it and so on. But as you said, I am a PE teacher. That's my basic degree. And then I did my PhD in philosophy. So working in school shortly, and then I moved to the faculty of sport, to the academia. My focus was on sport ethics and embodiment as well, so philosophy of body. And so then I went to private business, and then I went international. I was working 2 years in Turkey and so on. But recently, let's call it last 3 years, I really dedicated to my passion, and that was breath work. I started breath work in the previous millennium, 99 it was. Especially working with children with asthma, because I myself had asthma when I was young.
Right.
And then the journey actually started. And I developed these kind of things all years through, and was kind of adding on the various approaches, how to support people and so on. So here I am now as a coach, as a life coach, supporting people on their transition, transformation, and so on. And flow code was also one of the great challenges on this journey. And I'm more than willing to share with you my experiences, and with your clients as well, with your viewers. So how to move into the flow state of mind, flow state of life, and what are those things that could make it easier to do it.
Brilliant. You mentioned there, and I should also add, before I ask you another question, that I will also drop a link to your business so that people know how to get in contact with you. Do you give, like I do, one-to-one sessions, or what services do you typically offer folk?
Yeah, I do one-to-one and group sessions as well. And there was previous, before COVID era, there were lots of team building
Right.
facilitation and so on, and team coaching, not only team building. I like more team coaching in these times. There were kind of a motivational speeches and so on to various groups, companies and stuff. I worked a lot with the school and kindergarten stuff, so with teachers in general, and that was mostly group sessions. But in terms of live coaching, I do small groups, so it's kind of a semi-personal, let's call it so, almost personal, because I found out that having small groups from 3 to 5, first of all, it gives me enough room to personalize, the daily program. And with the flow code, like we will, I guess, do now in the next 10 days or so, you can check what kind of exercises would benefit the most the person that is with you in the program. Not, I'll give you just an example. If they need to become more decisive, so I would suggest to give them more strength exercises and so on, because physiologically it transfers to the decisiveness. And but I do have also personal meetings, sometimes with children, sometimes with adults. With athletes, I do personal trainings as well. So I have some Olympic athletes as well, and marathon runners and stuff. So that's where I do, those people who really want to dedicate themselves, and they know I need personal program. One size doesn't fit all, and so on. Then they go for personal one, and then we agree upon the dedication. Is it weekly, twice a week, or is it 15-minute call every day? It depends. But I mostly prefer small groups because of the social dynamics that is created, and because of the peer pressure, let's call it so, and sharing the experiences. Because I don't know everything, Okay, if we are speaking about, I don't know, family dynamics, I have 2 children and a wife. We are together for 20 years. But then there's the one who is divorcing or so on. And it helps the one who is about to divorce and so on and so forth, So, or it was an example, some other things about health issues and stuff. So, and there are smart people around, So if there are 5 people in the group, it's really, really great session.
I can imagine, and actually, it's such a shame we're in this worldwide situation. If I don't know, Milan, whether you know, but in this country we've just gone into a full lockdown, so it means restrictions are pretty harsh. We haven't been able to do group sessions, live physical group sessions, obviously for quite some time. But there's huge value, of course, to that. It's wonderful that we've got this technology to enable us to chat. I'm here, you're in Slovenia. But of course, nothing is better than the real thing, because you do pick up on the energy of others, and something magical happens once that flow occurs in the group, doesn't it? Before we go on, there's a question I just wanted to ask. You mentioned there you were teaching others around breath work and asthma. One of the things I was able to get rid of was my asthma. I had fairly mild, I suppose you'd call it. It was exercise-related asthma. And through a combination of doing both the Buteyko method and actually, at the time, the Wim Hof method, I got rid of it. And it was such a lovely experience going to the local doctor and doing the various respiratory tests, and for them to say, yep, David, you no longer need the medication.
Excellent.
And I wondered, is that what you were teaching, Buteyko and other methods such as that?
Yeah. I do. I brand it integral breathing, actually, in Slovene language as well. So every method is kind of a limited. And I really love, I started with Buteyko method. So I went to UK, to London for a course, because it's one of the rare method that is actually wondering, how do we breathe throughout the day? Then you have other methods who are, for a particular purpose. It comes from pranayama as well and so on. But this one is actually teaching you the rationale behind, the physiology behind, and the role of the nose and everything, and the hyperventilation, which is kind of the disease. And what I really liked about, and when I'm explaining people with asthma, that I don't regard it as a disease, as an illness. I see it as a self-defense mechanism towards losing the carbon dioxide because of the hyperventilation. So when you see it that way, you see, so my immune system is actually constricting my airways not to breathe out too much carbon dioxide in order for the cells to receive more oxygen. And they go, wow, so I'm not really sick. No, in fact, no, that's within you. You can call it disease. It's your problem. Or pharmacy would like to call it disease, non-communicable, non-curable, it's, lifetime. But then again, if it's self-defense mechanism, then let me deal with it. You said exercise induced. Some of them, many people, like my asthma in childhood was emotional induced.
Really?
Yes. So it was, from my experience, about 90% of the early childhood asthma is related to the atmosphere in the family. Putting aside those, environmental factors of some people that they don't live in a good environment and so on, but it has a lot to do with emotions, and it's in the language as well. It's inspiration and expiration. Yeah. So respiration, the core of the word is spirit. Spirit relates to the soul, yes? So the soul is actually expression of the spirit. And when you go into that, then you see that, you can be kind of not choked, what's the word? When you...
Suffocated.
Yes, you can be suffocating the spirit in these terms because of the emotional burden in the family or something like that. So it's very effective dealing like that, especially in the early childhood. And for me, it worked well as well.
It's really interesting. I've never really thought of it like that. I suppose because especially, you grow up in the 70s and the 80s, and of course, GPs had the same message. So you just applied that same psychology of thinking because it's, I tell you, just as a slight aside, one of the interesting conversations I had with somebody the other day was that we are now in a period, a wonderful period where we question. Now, sometimes we question too much when we don't need to necessarily, but we are in this wonderful period where we no longer accept the facts and the statements from our supposed experts. And I talk about GPs and anybody else with a label attached, and that's not downing them at all. They do an amazing job. But I think what's great is that we don't always just accept as a matter of pure fact what they tell us. And rightly so, we should be then seeking second, third opinions, doing our own research, figuring it out ourselves.
Anyway, what's going along that is also we are taking responsibility for ourselves. So I don't only blindly trust you, the MDs or the teachers as well in schools. Of course, I follow you, but I have other informations available. So I'm the one who is responsible for my life, and we no longer, transport the responsibility to the authorities blindly. That's a good way forward, as I see.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I'm just going to check to see that we haven't got... Oh, you're very lucky to hear the sound of Winston there in the background.
Oh,
yeah. So Daniel, glad you guys are giving us such great information, motivation through your work and words. Ultimately, gracias. Thank you. Can you explain a bit more? Right. So, yeah, somebody has asked here, can you explain a bit more about what a flow state is and why you would want to be in such a state? So that's exactly what we were hoping to move on to next, actually. And so thank you. I think that was Tenacious Danzig. So anyway, let's talk exactly that. Flow states. Let's go right to the basics. What is it? And why would we want to be in such a state?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually one of the most important, if you ask me, in your life. So what is a flow state? So the flow is actually speaking about the current of life that we are in. So there are two positions. You can either see yourself as life is happening to me, or you can put yourself in the middle of the life and say life is running through me and with me. So then you get the idea of the flow. So what is flow? So I go with the flow, because if like you said, Dave, evolution of Dave, that there's some kind of a current, yes, it's directed somewhere.
Absolutely.
Your personal evolution. But if your personal evolution is not aligned to the evolution of the human beings, then you are maybe going against the current, against the flow. Then you will get tired, you will get sick, and so on. So if you go with the flow, you know, it's not only an empty expression, it means a lot. So it means that I'm aligned with the deep current of life that carries everything. So why would we be in flow? Because it's the life with less restrictions. So it's the most easiest way, the most enjoyable way of living. That's it. So, and of course you can actively participate in that. You don't sit down in your couch and do, okay, I'm in flow. No. So because you're in flow, anything you do, you will have the support of the life itself in these terms. So, and if you accept it like that, so I am with life. Life is running through me and with me. And if you are active, then it gives you an additional strength. You have a motor behind yourself, you know. So it seems easy for everyone. And if you consider it like that, then when you are in the state of flow, because, you know, sometimes if you're in the midst of the flow and it's the strongest, and then you're at the side maybe, because you cannot always stay in. It would be hyped, you know, all the time. You need to rest as well. That's the basic law of universe, you know, this going up and down, polarity and so on. So when you're in the flow, you kind of lose yourself because you're relaxed. There's no ego trip, we would say. So it's kind of being egolessness. And then also time is distorted. It can be as it has stopped, and you have all the time to make something. Some really fast move on. In sport, for example, what athletes are reporting, or I myself had this kind of experience in sport. When I was playing volleyball in high school, then I went for this punch to the ball, and I jumped up and I saw there was a block. So those two guys were bigger and higher jumper than me. I said, I'm not going to do it. And then I was up there in the air. I said, the ball was going like this, and I was trying to hit. No, this will not be good. And I did it here with my left hand. Never trained that. But for me, I had all the time up there in the air to think, to calculate this. They are here. I'll do it with my left hand here. And we won a point.
Yeah.
So, and then I fall down and say, wow, what was that? The time stopped for me. Of course, I wasn't there seconds in the air, but for me, it felt like a minute. So that's one thing as well that happens. And so this deep immersion into the activity, it's there was a great philosopher, Eugen Herrigel, who was writing about Zen, and he went to Japan to study it and to the master of archery. And then he came out when this feeling is, what is the goal of the Zen in archery is that when you are, you have this bow and arrow, and when you make this movement, you don't know is the, who is now the shooter, who is the bow, or who is doing the activity. Is the bow doing the activity, or am I the one? So you merge with the activity. You become the verb itself. So you become the activity. And also there is no sense of fear. You trust fully. Doesn't mean that you're foolish. You can be cautious still. But because you're in the flow, you have this support, these buffers that are giving you the feeling of safety. And you can be on your edge of your abilities, and usually in sport they are, but that's the sweet, point when the elite results are going on. So also this fearless state is appearing. And these kind of moments in our lives are so precious that we are willing to invest a lot of things to, repeat them as much as possible. And for example, in art as well, or in music, it's very common that these kind of things happens because usually those are the who started the athlete's career, or the when do you start athlete's career? When you're young. So it's kind of your calling. So when you actually invest your effort into your calling, it's most likely the flow states will be repeatable because that's your path. And then when we are adult and so on, and if we don't follow these kind of careers when we started as young athletes or young musicians and artists and so on, but we think, okay, no, I'm going to be a life coach. How do I, find the flow in this kind of a way? Same. Do I enjoy it? Am I aligned to what I like? Is this felt sense is important? Is this my game? Is it right to do it, Milan? And when you have this inner yes, okay, then invest the energy and ride the wave. And then it happens then when we have these kind of sessions and so on, I really feel it, how I'm going into it, how I'm getting immersed into the activity, into the session. I listen to the people, to the group. I try to read their bodies and stuff. I try to recall what I read and so on, but I'm in the flow. And what is important is, because there might be different stages of flow state. One is that you're deeply involved and you're not aware of yourself. That means you're kind of lost. And the other one, and this is the one I really go for, and I support clients for, is the one where you are involved, but you are still an observer. That's important. Otherwise, it can be like, I don't know if I'll find the expression in English, the proper one. It's kind of a murder from, how to say, unconscious way of, killing someone. You know what I mean? So you're in the flow, you're in this psychosis, whatever, and so on. You can call it flow as well. And you're doing a bad thing. Yes, you can do that as well. You're fighting with someone. You fall into this flow.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's kind of a not being present, actually.
Yeah.
And you're doing something with your full life force. That's why I really go for this one. No. Observe the one who is flowing in life. And that's the sweet spot in this, let's call it grounded spirituality that I seek for.
Yeah.
So here's the peace, and then here is the action.
Yeah, that's very sort of Eckhart Tolle-like, isn't it? And I think what you've just described there, I think it's easier for people to understand flow states when they think of an elite sports person, simply because it makes sense that as an elite sports person, you've spent hours and hours and hours doing the same thing over and over again. You've become an expert at at that thing that you do, and hopefully you're still passionate about the thing that you do. And so when you're faced with a competition in particular, hopefully, and it won't happen all the time, but hopefully there will be these moments where all of a sudden, as you say, everything goes quiet. You often hear in this country when rugby players get interviewed that they walk out into the stadium and they can't hear the audience, they can't hear the public. Everything is tunnel vision. And I think most people at some point in their life, once they've reached sort of middle age, they've probably experienced it in some form or another, albeit brief. I know that I've had moments, probably when I was acting many, many years ago, but also when I was running, doing fell running. I remember this moment running down a scree slope. So scree is, lots of stones on the side of a mountain. And so it's very difficult to have your balance. So I read a book by a famous fell runner that described that good fell runners know how to switch this off. So in his mind, his way of describing it was just he would say we would switch off our brain. But of
Mhm.
course, you and I know it's more than that. It's that transient
Hyperfrontality.
hyperfrontality. It's slowing down this front bit so that you no longer think. And he said that was the key to it. You would run down a very steep slope without thought of where your foot is going, because as soon as you start thinking about where your feet should go, you're going to fall over. You're going to fall off the mountain. So, and I remember this run, and it wasn't a competition. It was just a run with some friends, but we all just had this amazing flow of running down the mountain. And I almost kind of felt this spring in my step, almost like I was a goat, on a mountain, just bouncing around, when you see them precariously bouncing on cliff tops. And it was just an incredible feeling. And so I think most people have experienced it, but the point of flow code in particular, the point of what you and I talk about and teach, you being a hell of a lot more of an expert than I am, is that we look at channels, you might say, or methods that will encourage more of those flow state moments. And in the interim, it will encourage a way of flowing through your life that just means that more opportunities come your way. And also you recognize those opportunities. I think that's the really interesting thing for those that aren't elite athletes. This flow state and actually flowing through your life is important for everyone, because things start happening in a much more exciting, interesting way. You bump into people you never expected to. You end up having a conversation with, well, perhaps you don't right now because we're all locked down, but you end up having these moments that would never have happened before because this is working much more efficiently. So I think you gave a wonderful description there, really interesting. I wonder, is it worth us? Let's move on to breath in particular. Could you tell me, Milan, your thoughts on where you think breath comes into creating flow and flow states?
Okay, thank you. Let me just plug in the optical wire, because in order not to destroy or to be in flow easier. Okay, it's done. So it's a bit faster upload and download as
well
well.
done. Yeah.
So breathing, where does it come?
Oh, Milan, I've lost you now. Just check through the questions.
Yes, I can hear you well. I can see. But
I can hear you and see you now perfectly. So we'll crack on.
Okay, great. I think should be fine now.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was mine plugging in probably, and it changed the wire.
Oh, fine. Yeah.
Okay, so about breathing, it comes in from the start in terms of a flow as well. So I think that breathing is kind of a forgotten art of living. It's a skill. Breathing is a skill, how to live well. In yoga, we know it. It's pranayama. It's actually how to manipulate the energy, the life energy. And that's the core question. If you want to induce flow, then you need to ask yourself, how do I deal with the energy in my life? So breathing is the first one. In what terms? So it's the most fundamental physiological function is the heart beating, yes, in these terms of the body. And it happens already in about from second to the third week of the fetus. So it happens in the womb as well already. But breathing, when does it start? When you're born, you start breathing on your own. But actually, your mother already breathed with you for 9 months. So you see, breathing is a current, is the flow that runs through your mother in a sense. So it has a wave pattern, and it goes then into a newborn human being. So this is one thing which I wanted to emphasize, that why breathing and flow are so closely related, and why flow. Of course, it's about personal flow, but we have also social flow. So in terms of breathing, there's a great expression like atmosphere. What kind of atmosphere you're creating? So my intention is to create the atmosphere to induce flow. So when I invest effort, when I do some task, either in my office or in outdoor sports or whatever, indoor, anything I do, when I cook. So I want to create the atmosphere that will induce the current, the flow that is running through me. How do I do that? So one of the things is the breath. So by breathing consciously, what do? You sense, actually, you can smell the environment as well. Because breathing through the nose, it actually relates very well with our mammalian brain. And as newborns, as children and so on, we are really very much addicted to our nose as well, to the smell. We smell the danger still, and so on. So that's important. Why? Because there is this olfactory nerve coming down through the brain towards the nose. And so the chemicals that are running through the air into our nose are transformed into the electrical impulse, and they give information to the hypothalamus, which is a control board. And then the decision is taken. Is it safe? So I can play, stay and play. Yes. If not, should I fight or run? Fight or flight. Yes. And if it's too big for us to control it and so on, then we freeze. We go down to the brain stem, to the reptilian brain, we call it, and so on. So that's the point. That's why breathing through the nose is so important. And that's why breathing techniques are so powerful. And they can connect actually the conscious world that we are aware of, what we see, we call it reality, and the subconscious world. And to put it physiologically, in terms of parts of the body, look about the lungs. The lungs, they take in the air. Yes, so we breathe in the outer world. We also smell it through our nose. So this is the sensory function, sensory part of the breathing. Yes, it's the breathing in, inspiration. So life is coming inside now, this body, let's call it so. And then the lungs that are filled, they hug the heart. They actually kind of a circle around, yes, the heart.
Develop it, yeah.
But the heart is unconscious. The heart is beating all the time. So that's the bridge. You see, breathing is the bridge because I can control my breathing. I cannot directly control my heart. So, but heart was the first one, the first life function within my body when I was 2 weeks old as a fetus. So, and that's why it is subconscious, and it should be like that. I don't have any authority to intervene, except indirectly through my breathing. And that's when it comes, why we should use our brain capacities, because breathing in, inspiration, breathing through the nose gives you an ability to include our prefrontal cortex, which is about actually rational mind. We can think about future, we can think about past, but we are doing it now. So from this moment now, I can affect my future, and from this moment now, I can change my past as well. So we are always in the present moment. That's one thing. And when we are breathing in, we are sensing the reality, and then when we are breathing out, we are actually acting upon that reality and co-participating in this reality, co-creating the reality. And that's important. So we see that by breathing, we have this inspiration. We have this kind of godly-like abilities. That's why usually children are not interested in breathing exercises. They follow them and so on. But consciously, why would I sit down and breathe like this in Buteyko method? Why would I do 30 Wim Hof breaths in and out? They don't care. Because their brain is not yet developed. They would feel that they are co-creating the world, and they are responsible for the reality they produce. Our brain matures around 25th year. when we are 25 years old. So that's the maturity of the brain is reached. And then actually we have the full potential to co-create our world. And that's why in this period of life, people are more interested in, okay, how can I manipulate this? And through breathing, we really go down to that basic tools. And when you set up the basics well, fundamentals well, then if they are solid, then everything up you can build. That's why I really love working and starting with breath work. And of course, when you start with breath work, you work with inspiration. You work actually with a, let's call it on spiritual dimension, down through the heart, through this heartful, soulful dimension to the body, physical reality. So we have to be grounded. If we are not grounded, if we don't accept our physicality, then the current doesn't run. The electrical current runs only if you plug in. So we need to be plugged into the earth. We need to accept our bodies if you want that the current of life will be huge and you will reach those moments of the state of flow when you really feel it.
What a brilliant way of putting it. And actually, this is why breath in particular is, as I was describing earlier, a channel to this, because it really does have an impact on so many parts of your body, doesn't it? And let's face it, we can get a balance on our autonomic nervous system just through breath alone. So it makes sense that this acts as a key. And it's certainly one of the things that, by the sounds of it, it's one of your things that you touch on initially when you're working with others, especially those that might be dealing with stress or anxiety, or various conditions. It's the breath that can be the key that can then set a new path. Now, before we go on, I noticed there were a flurry of questions coming in, or at least statements. I don't know if they're questions or statements, so let's just see. Yeah, we've got a new father here. I do like that. I know that there are lots of fathers that watch this channel, which is great, because it means that I know that my message is the right one. I'm a authentic father, you might say. So whatever I go through and I tell you about is because I am a father, and I know that other blokes out there are going through the same issues, or hopefully positive experiences, we should say. So we've got here, Luke Russ, if you guys, Taoism, would you say this flow state is the same? Oh, now, I don't know much about Taoism. Do you, Milan? Before I ask you this question, do you know much about Taoism? Taoism, so the Chinese philosophy, Taoism.
The Tao, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you cannot say anything about the Tao because it cannot be described by words.
Right. Well, Luke, I know who you are, by the way. So I'm just seeing he's put here. If you guys know of Taoism, would you say this flow state is the same concept as Wu Wei?
Yes.
Is it Wu Wei? Action without forcing.
Yeah.
Which actually, that last statement there is absolutely correct, isn't it? Action without forcing.
Yeah.
I know that I've mentioned on my channel on many occasions, as soon as you apply force to anything, it generally doesn't go the right way.
Yeah.
And unless it's the front door that you don't have the key to, then you need force. But beyond that, force is never a good thing. So sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, exactly. Without forcing, but that doesn't mean without effort.
Absolutely.
That's the the rationale behind it. You need to be proactive, but don't force it.
Yeah, and in fact, when we talk about Csikszentmihalyi, who I know, and I know I've pronounced his name incorrectly, but anyway, the Hungarian psychologist that came up with that, his
positive psychology.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So he talks about that a lot, doesn't he? That it is a this perfect balance between effort and challenge and skill, in particular, and you need to get that perfect balance in order to start feeling those flow states. We've got Mattis here from Latvia. My life experience trying to motivate other people to live healthier. That's good. So somebody else is starting a channel. Mattis, I'll come back to you with your question because it's not really related to this chat right now. Yeah, so for Brady, his experience of flow happened when he was playing sports as a child. So yeah, Brady's saying that he's 52, and he, in his opinion, he's saying flow states is something he doesn't think he could experience anymore. Which I know you and I will both absolutely disagree. But it does, and this is where it comes down to this combination, really, doesn't it, of finding a thing that you love, because that's what really encourages you to add that effort, to work hard.
Mhm.
And by doing that and applying these various other tools that in part we've discussed with the breath, but there's lots of other tools you can do, you will experience those flow states. Again, there is no age limit to flow states.
Exactly.
It's
a natural state, actually, of being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a reason, isn't there? There
And
must be
power
some
of the
kind of
layers.
evolutionary reason behind
Yes.
it.
And that's the name of the game, I would say, in life. It's the hide and seek, So we are first as infants and young children. We are in it completely.
Yeah.
We are playful. And that's my question to the people, like, 52. So what? Are you playful? What's your play? What game do you play? What do you like to play, and so on? And there are people who don't play anymore. They don't have this playfulness anymore. And that's the opposite of the depression. So you see, play is opposite of the depression. So it's not only finding the things that you like. That's okay. Probably we all know them. But it's also about anchors that we have. So when you want to go by boat to the sea for the trail, for the journey, you need to pick up the anchor. So that's also some shadow work in these terms shall be done sometimes. I'm okay, I find it well, I enjoy it, but still it's not going, So then you start forcing.
Yeah.
No, don't force it. Ask yourself, is there something that is, holding me back within me, with my maybe traumatic experiences, or within patterns in my family? Doesn't mean it has to be everything traumatic. It's just the thought pattern. It's just that I care about my image, but then if I throw it away, it's liberating. Who cares? I'm 52. So, and so on. So you can also play with mindsets to reach this state of flow as well. And it helps, of course, if you dedicate yourself on the task. So when the inspiration comes, keep doing it. So do it again and again, and set up achievable goals, because that works on a hormonal level. Immediately, when a human being sets up the goal that can be achieved, the dopamine is excreted. So, and dopamine actually is the reward system. It's kind of likes at the Facebook and so on. So when you receive this award system, dopamine also helps produce more testosterone. So you will get power to go for more and more. So it's kind of addictive. And then you build up on that, and you are becoming more and more focused into the task you're doing because you love it. And then this hypofrontality comes into play. Then you start to not to think about, I don't care about it, I enjoy this one, I'll invest all my efforts here. And you narrow it down to the things that you have already automated. So you don't worry anymore because, it comes natural from you. So there's no fear. And again, you're more into the flow. And suddenly you're flushed with these bliss hormones and this kind of flow state. Deep immersion happens when you're fully in. And then, of course, it fades away as well from time, with time. But that's okay. Then you are happy, relaxed. Wow, that was great. I did well my task and so on. Maybe for 10 minutes, maybe for a minute. Maybe it was one jump and so on. Doesn't really matter. Or maybe it was the full day. It was not so intensive, but it was really a lovely day, joyful, enthusiastic day. But you know that you did it consciously. So when some worry came, you said, no, I don't deal with this one. I have to now play with my children. Let's cook a meal together and so on. So you really devote yourself into the moment. So flow states are achievable by the skill, and it's learnable. We can learn it, relearn it actually, because we were there.
Yeah, exactly. When we were children.
Yes.
Yeah, you were constantly present as a child. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's
The age. We speak also about the brain waves, and it's very interesting how the brain waves that lead us toward the flow state as well correlates with the age. So the children around from the 6 to 10 are most spend a lot of time in this alpha state. Then with the age of 12, they start to worry and think and so on. So that's also already a beta stage, also in brain waves. So that's very interesting how it correlates. So when we look at the children at that age, from 6 to 10, that's the playfulness I would like to do in my life.
I think that's a really good point. Now, I've been experimenting actually. So my son is 6, and so is my dog actually. But anyway, that's another aside. But anyway, the point here is there are times, and I'm sure there are lots of other fathers out there right now, especially that experience this. There are times when my son will say, "Daddy, will you play with me?" And at that time, I might be in front of a computer. I might be doing some work and totally invested in it. I'm not necessarily in a flow state, but I'm invested. And so therefore, initially, I get this surge of frustration of God, I know I should, these stupid thoughts of you that run through your mind of, I want to do this is what I want to do. But at the same time, as a father, I have a moment of guilt that maybe what I should be doing is spending time with him. And what I've been experimenting with is there are times when obviously I am at work and it's a proper work day. So I'm talking about those moments when he asks if he could play with me and it's a Saturday and I probably shouldn't be working, but I love what I do. So I do quite often work. So on those moments, I remove myself and I engage with my son. But what I've been experimenting with a lot more these days is to tap into my senses, my sensory awareness, knowing that he is in that alpha state. He is totally in the present moment. And it takes a while to do this, to come out of this work mode with certain brainwave patterns, to then be not necessarily in an alpha state with him, but and I'm not necessarily trying to pick up on his energy. But what I find is, let's say he wants to play with Lego. If I start to engage my senses, to use my auditory, my kinesthetic, my visual sense by becoming much more aware of them, I can lose that frustration very quickly. It disappears from the thought pattern of what I was doing a minute ago to being invested a hell of a lot more than I could have been with my son and the play that we want to do. So I think Brady, when you mentioned there feeling as if you are unlikely to have those flow state moments, I think it's important for us to also mention here that it's not something that only happens when you're doing sport. This can happen in any activity. And I wonder whether for somebody in, let's say Brady is your client, actually, Milan. So this I think we're just going to run with this just very quickly. But let's say he is your client and he's made that statement, and obviously in our minds we know deep down that that is untrue, but for him he's in another psychological state of belief. What kind of thing would you encourage him to do initially in order to set down that path of eventually having those flow state moments?
Yeah. If it's individual, of course. One thing, if we would be working one-to-one, maybe in the office settings or anywhere, so just to see each other, or maybe he was about to explain to me some things, and I would observe that maybe he's a great joker, making jokes and so on and so forth. So already from that, he might be in the flow, just revealing something to me, the problem to me in a manner that is flowish in these terms, like we are doing this discussion and so on. So why? Because it's good to recognize, this is a flow state. Because some people, maybe they do experience this, but they don't know it. So that's why one of the first questions would be, what do you like to play? Where do you lose yourself in these terms, in the activity itself? So that would be the first questions that I would ask. Then the other thing would be either to do some breath work or to do the flow code, somatic movement and so on, because it's combined with breathing, slow, deep breathing and movement, slow movement, and the senses should be turned inwards. So feel the move, how you do it, more of like a Tai Chi and so on, or Qigong, very slow movement, but it's much easier because there's not a huge choreography. So that I would took him through and would kind of try to ask about it. Okay, how did you feel? Could you go with the moment? Did you at some moment kind of were fully present? Do you feel your legs grounded? Do you feel your chest stretching and so on? So be there inside of you. And then I would ask about hobbies. Hobby is usually the activity where you reach the flow the most easiest way. So, or even if you don't do it right now in this period, because maybe it's tough or so on. What was your hobby? So go there again and see if you can repeat this feeling and so on. So these would be the things. And in terms of supporting as a flow coach, I would literally, like you said before, use my auditory system, maybe music, movement, gustatory system. So to make the senses more, how to say, to trigger them more often. So he would become of the internal senses, and that's when this joy happens, and that's where we can find this alignment then. From the inner, yes, this feels like a right thing to do, and I love it, and I enjoy it. That's me. That's who I am. And as soon as you have that answer, that's who I am. Okay, go for it. So you are aligned. Now go for your desire. And if he has no desire, if Brady, you cannot name a desire in your life, then we have a problem. You deserve the life. So go for it. But how do we go for the life? Well, we fulfill our desires. So you need to have a goal. Without goal, we are lost. This is the twilight zone then. So we need to be directed somewhere, and it has to be meaningful for us. It has to make sense. Yes, I'm ready to invest that energy. That's sometimes with some people is difficult because they are not satisfied with where they are, but they also don't have a goal, what they want. And what is the usual response there? I'm against something. And they invest energy against. Pro. What do you go for? That's the alignment with the current of life. Not, I'm against this, and I'm against this relation, it doesn't work anymore, I will divorce. That's okay. But what do you want? So turn yourself, what do you want? And this will be the way where you will find your flow. And of course, then having reachable goals, repeatable breath work, movement stuff, mindset as well. When you woke up in the morning, wow, another day, another opportunity, reach the flow. Where's my little one? Where's the guy? Let's play, and so on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's take a dog for a walk, or I will let the dog to walk me. Why not? I'll follow him, and so on. So there are many ways how to work with the people who think that they don't have this capacity. In the end goal is to put the spirit into action. Let yourself go, because at the end of the day, when you let yourself go, where you flourish, that's where you're the most beautiful as a human being.
Absolutely.
And that's where the society needs you. And that's where your family needs you. And that's where, for example, your boy, oh, that's my father. That's the way. Now he's flourishing. Because otherwise I just see him worrying, working a lot and so on. But when you're in the play, when you're lost there, when you're doing sport, then they look after us also. And that's also a responsibility. I also have father groups. That's the responsibility. So in order for my children to see me flourish, so it's okay that they see me being devoted to work because I love it. But then it's okay that they see me dancing with my wife in the living room or making jokes about it and so on, hugging each other, maybe give a kiss and so on. Oh, that's how a man should treat a woman. Good. So that's also a role model. And if you do it playfully, sometimes in the flow, even better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, actually, because children don't learn by what you tell them.
Exactly.
That goes in one ear and out the other. They only learn by your actions.
Yes.
And so that's what's so cool about all of this stuff. Finding, more flow in your life, learning breath work, learning about mindfulness, meditation. All of these add layers to your personality. And we talk a lot about the flow personality in flow code, but all of these encourage the real you from being on show to your friends and family. The more you are, the happier you are, the more of the better the connection you have with those other humans. And I've spoken previously about getting 3 things right. And that is that, in order to be a happy person, you've got to get your relationship with your job right. You've got to get your relationship with others right. And you've got to get your relationship. Probably the most important bit is the relationship with yourself, because I think especially now, fathers in particular, but I think it's most people these days have this picture in their minds of what they should be. And as soon as you apply that word should, you're on the wrong path, because really, if you get that relationship with yourself right, in other words, you become happy with who you are and what you're presenting to the world, all of a sudden you become this person you were meant to be. You become this amazing father, husband, friend, because you're being the real you. So a lot of this stuff might seem tricky for some that are watching this right now. But if you start committing to a path of learning, of applying simple techniques, you don't have to go away. Quite often people report on my channel that they don't want to go and read this book that I tell them about because they're not in the right mind state for reading or researching, and that's fine. Start following some very simple practices that you can apply as part of your daily routine, and things will just suddenly start to improve bit by bit. And then you'll get your own ideas, won't you? I mean, Milan, I don't know whether you agree with this, but I've certainly found that once I've headed down this path of evolving, of enhancing my body and mind, that I quite often come up with my own methods of improving and encouraging that flow state, because things go that way. Opportunities come your way, but also your mind just is far freer to come up with ideas that work for me personally. Excuse me, I'm just going to check the question. Yeah, somebody's put here, time moves more slowly, which is absolutely true. And Brady's put here, actually, I agree, I need to find that play again. Absolutely. It's so easy as an adult to forget that we no longer have to play, because we think of the word play as something that children do, when in fact it's something we should all do all the time.
Play for me, as a philosopher, is actually a natural state of being. You see, the nature, if you look at the nature, it's the stage that you need to play on, so with all these dynamics and so on, it's the only rationale for me, it's a play. So let's play. And playfulness is also the most liberating mindset for me. And that's where if you play with your boy Lego or Lego and so on, immediately you can become a construction worker. And that's the point where you say, how to tap into this flow and so on, and into this mindset. Usually there is always, it's a transaction between our need to belong, to be part of the group, because we are social creatures. As a young children, we cannot survive on our own. So this is the basic need, to be social, to be part of the group, to be part of the family, and so on. And the other one is to be authentic, like you said. And they are in competition sometimes, especially in the early childhood. So, for example, your little guy, if you said not now, he will rather say, okay, I will obey because I want to be well with my father. Yeah. So he will put his authentic need to play right now to side. And if you are repeating it, he will learn, okay, it's better to be friend with my father because otherwise, if I push, he will be angry at me. And this is the God speaking to me. So I don't do that. And what he does, he suppresses the need to play. So, and this is the anchor, can become anchor. And when you are 40 years old, you lost your playfulness.
Yeah.
Then you're
really
in depression. It could be just kind of a, from this kind of a patterns in the family. But he and you can explain to him, no, I need to work, now it's this lockdown and we struggle, we need to pay the loan. And 6 years old doesn't care about this. This is beyond his comprehension and understanding of the world. There's the need to play. And you as a father, you as my God, need to support my need. That's it. That's a 6-year-old mindset.
Yeah.
So I will understand if you will say, just a moment, let me finish this one, I'm with you. That's okay. But if you start to manipulate any other way, it can bring difficulties into a relation and so on. So it is this, and this, for me, this is a game of life. And it's all okay. Because also, if you would say this to the little guy, it will take him through his life in a certain manner. It will color his life. Otherwise, it would be the other way around. And he will develop certain survival mechanisms for that, which might be great doing some business. So he's able to delay his need. So he will develop endurance and perseverance and so on. And it is good. So, but when we grow up, it's good to do this integral work. So this shadow work. Okay, I'm like that because of this and this and this pattern in my family. That's all okay, because of that, I have some strength that others are missing. I have a competitive advantage in life because of this. I can wait because my father learned me that. I've learned that. So he will be great in business, for example. And then there will be a lack. There will be an anchor. So the suppression of playfulness, maybe. So he will find it difficult to liberate himself and be playful. He will always wait for something more, for his father to play. That's my need. So it could be, when he's 40, just playing with scenarios, that this will be someone, or maybe his wife will come and say, let's dance. And she, no, I'm not really into dancing. I'm more of a serious computer geek and so on. Why? Because he saw you maybe, working on computer and he has the need to play. So this is the way then our external life will bring to us something that we suppress in our childhood.
Absolutely.
That's only integrity. And that's actually liberating. And when you do that, and it can be done in 28 days sometimes, if you tackle it properly, open up actually the field, and put down the burden of these patterns and just accept it as it is, as your game. This is my game. My parents are my game. They are not guilty. I'm the one who choose the scenario. So you take first person responsibility for your life, and then you start to play with the Lego emotions in your life, and you construct it and so on. You bring it in. You radically accept the reality as it is, without judgment, because any kind of feedback is good feedback. Also, let's say negative emotions are just emotions, like positive one. They all count. And when you bring them in with this felt sense, then you say, this is the right way. This is me. And then you are on the path towards flow.
I like it.
So you see, that was a flow of words.
Absolutely. People know on my channel that I do get these long rambles, these diatribes, you might call them, Well, hopefully they are still flow-like. Now, we've been going for about an hour in this chat. One of the things I wanted to at least incorporate and possibly end on was something that I've not really come across before in breath work. So although I'm qualified as a breath coach, I'm certainly not as experienced as you. One of the things, though, that you've brought about into my awareness is this whole idea of the masculine and feminine breath, of the inhale, the exhale. And I still think of it in physiological terms, of the inhale increasing your heart rate and being more sympathetic led, and the exhale more parasympathetic. But I really like the idea of something that you've proposed. I wonder if you could just, perhaps as a last bit here, just tell me and tell everybody here more about that idea about the masculine and the feminine in breath.
Yeah, great. This is what I'm still developing. But anyway, so breath has four stages: breathing in, holding the breath in, breathing out, and holding the breath out. So empty lungs in these terms. So when we are breathing in, we are inspiring. Yes. So the external comes inside. That's we are sensing the environment. We are smelling the atmosphere and so on. Also, when I breathe in, when I look at you and I'm breathing in, I get more information about you. There has been research done that in terms of business, if you have a kind of a business challenge and you need to decide about it, you're reading the contract and you are breathing in mindfully. So when I see the letters, the words, the numbers, I smell them, I breathe them, and I breathe with diaphragm as well. Those CEOs that were in experimental group doing like this had the best business decisions. So breathing in, so better than those who are mouth breathers or didn't care about breathing in, just doing the calculations and stuff. So conscious breathing in is a sensory work, and this is a feminine side. So to sense the environment, you see, the warmth is the room, the place. So breathing in means building up the room, the place where something will be done. So that means taking in the information. And sensorics is actually conscious work. Then it turns towards the motorics, sensomotorics. Yes, you sense the environment with auditory eyes and breath and so on, and then you act upon it. And that's the masculine. So breathing out is putting yourself out. It's penetrating in the space. So first is breathing in and then going out. And those are two opposite, actually, polar qualities, feminine and masculine, yin and yang and so on, day and night. And they are actually embedded in our breathing and also in our heart beating. It goes the same. So you see the pattern, it's like a fractal repeating through our physiological functions. So when I was playing with this concept in my breath work, I gave people some task, for example, to breathe in, to hold the breath, then out and hold it. And we calculate this box breathing. And at certain stage, some people can feel that, okay, if I'm breathing in to the number of 8 and then hold it 8, breathing out 8, I can only hold it then out for 2. I said, okay, so why is the problem here? Why cannot you do box breathing 8, 8, 8, 8 and so on? And usually it came out about these qualities, feminine and masculine, accepting the reality. Because when you're breathing out, you're co-creating the reality. And when you hold the breath out, it's quiet, it's peaceful. And if you're not satisfied with what is there, then you cannot hold the breath out. You cannot be calm with the empty lungs. Or vice versa. When you are breathing in slowly, you're taking the breath in, you're sensing it, you need to become sensitive. And that's the feminine quality. So you have guys who are strong, who cannot really slow down your in-breath, feel it. They just, no, they are really aggressive and so on. No. a good warrior is about sensing the environment, the danger. So what do? You breathe in the environment, and when you breathe in, you always enhance other senses. So if you're looking at some picture and breathe in through the nose consciously and slowly, you will actually put more power into that image that you're looking. You will read it better. You will feel it better. And that's why if you do that, when you exhale, you're more aligned to the current that is bigger than you yourself, and so on. And this is what I'm playing with. So this masculine, feminine, so that means breathing is in as a feminine energy and breathing out as masculine.
I like it. It's really, really interesting stuff. And the way you were describing it there, I kept thinking actually, because I know a few people have mentioned Qigong in the comments there, that's kind of what I was thinking here, and that's what's so lovely about breath work. When you think of it as being, quite often you associate it more with the kind of the yogic pranayama, but of course breath work is translated across various different ancient styles and disciplines, and definitely Qigong being one of them. I'm just going to have a last look, if I may, at some of the statements here. Yeah, quite a few people mentioning Qigong. Brady's come back again with I've always wanted to play an instrument. Yes, now is the time, Brady. That's brilliant. Especially because music, let's face it, once you do get proficient at an instrument and you're creating music for others to hear, you get this incredible connection, don't you? So
music is a flow. If there's no flow, there's no music.
Yeah,
melody
like that. If you guys are comfortable, could you define a bit your stances on natural mind state altering substances such as marijuana, psilocybin, mushrooms? Yeah, I think that's probably a topic for another conversation, actually, Daniel. But I get why you're asking that question, and believe me, it's certainly an avenue I will be exploring further.
That's a holotropic breathing. If you want to do it naturally, go for holotropic breath.
Absolutely, yeah.
Proper guidance.
Actually, quite a few people have experienced those states with the soma breath work, which, whilst isn't holotropic, when you do some of the awakening breath sessions that can last about an hour, you do get some pretty heightened experiences. So if people haven't yet explored soma breath, by the way, do give that a go. There's a lot of free sessions out there. On my channel, I've got a few soma breath sessions. Somebody talking about Japanese culture, the tea ceremony, painting, flower arrangement. Yeah, I have to say, when you look at a lot of Japanese culture, it does seem as though, although conversely, I know in Japan they have a very high suicide rate, but they do also in their culture have this incredible connection with practices such as they've stated here, flower arranging, tea ceremony, and a lot of that is in a Zen way, very much being in flow, being mindful, isn't it?
Yeah, being embedded, being part of something bigger. That's important.
Chris, you've commented on my channel before a few times, so thank you. And he's put here, greetings from New York. I'm a pro guitar player and teacher, and it saved my life. I get what he's saying there. When you find these things that encourage those states that bring you into the moment, it can feel like it's saving your life, especially if you've been lost in, let's call it the Matrix.
But exactly like this. So that was my childhood passion, but I forgot it. Yeah. So I can maybe afford it right now and find your flow again.
Totally.
That could be the answer to Brady as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. Milan, what a great chat. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a nice one, and still lots to be said. But
well, we can always do a part 2.
Yes. If you have a lot of fathers, I'll be happy, more than happy to speak about fatherhood.
I think that would make a really good
Because I work
chat.
with a family lab, and it's a great system. And my daughters are 16 and 12. I wish I would go through this training when they were younger, but
Right,
it's
well,
still not too late.
let's lock it in. Let's get that, but let's do it. Let's get the date in. So guys, do keep an eye out for that. There will be another chat.
Excellent.
Milan, we've not met in person beyond the technical world. As soon as we're out of lockdown, I shall be making my way over to Slovenia to darken your doorstep, and we can have some more flowing conversation.
Excellent. Not only with me, also with staff from the Flow Code.
Definitely.
So it would be great if you meet them all. And actually, that's an important thing which is not written anywhere. So if I can share it with you. Sergey Petrovic is the mind master behind the Flow Code. I was kind of a partnering and providing a kind of a, partner to play with, and so on. And he's a brother of an excellent world champion in alpine skiing. He died, unfortunately, but that was the family who went for the peak experience. And this guy, Rok Petrovic, was a European champion, world champion in alpine skiing. He was one of the first who introduced the mindful training into the alpine skiing. So what was that? They were, this slalom downhill. So when you need to do lots of these left and rights and so on. And he held it in his mind. So in the start, he was one of the first, I think the first time, who went like this, closing his eyes, and he was actually running the slope before really doing it. And that's important also, imagination. If you can imagine it, then the neurons can connect. Then your body can follow. If you cannot imagine it, then it's almost worthless doing it. That's why it's so important really to go down to it. And really, I also consider Flow Code like that. It has these genes of excellency written in it. And I really love it, and I love working with it. And I really, if in your flow coaching career, take advantage of it. I really wish you that you can find everything that's coded in it and offer it, support the people with it, because it's excellent.
Really good point, especially around imagination. Especially when you're focusing on your goals, you have that end goal with the imagination of what it feels like having achieved the thing that you wanted to achieve. That's how you lock it in, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the anchor in the future.
So much more we could chat about. I love the idea of the next one, though, part 2. I'm glad we've locked it in now. But that was really cool. I love that. Thank you, Milan. Thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate your statements, your questions. I know we haven't covered them all, but again, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, and keep the spirit into action. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, goodbye for now.
Goodbye.